Hey guys, Basil and Will with GraysonHobby, and today we're going to do a review and a bench breakdown of the hottest drone of the year.
We're going to take the iFlight Nazgul Evoque and pull it apart and show you guys the inside of this thing, because you can see what it looks like on the outside, but it's kind of hard to find stuff about the inside.
And for those who are asking what the difference is between the Dead Cat and the Squashed X, we have the answers, but you got to watch the video. All right, well, where do I pick up one of these awesome looking Nazguls?
Right here in this store or at GraysonHobby.com.
Everything you see here ships right from here from GraysonHobby. We have a whole store full of FPV drones, airplanes, parts, batteries, all that stuff. Nothing drop ships, everything ships here from Loganville. Every little purchase helps. If it's a pack of props, a battery strap, or the quad and radio. Everything keeps the lights on and keeps this channel going.
Guys, so I know everybody's familiar with the Nazgul from iFlight. This is the older version now. There's a new one that came out. It's been very popular. We're a little late to the game getting the video out, but we actually have them in stock and all that, and figured I want to go over this with you guys because a lot of people ask me this question. This is the Evoque from iFlight. It's the Nazgul Evoque, so it's the newer model. You can see the plastic side plates. This happens to be the Dead Cat style versus the Squashed X. Went with this style here for guys getting into the FPV world. A lot of the nicer cameras and all that thrown on there. You just want to get the props out of the way, and this is a great way to do it with the Dead Cat. And guys, the whole reason these are on here is for prop orientation out of the box. For people that don't know, this is a props out design. The whole reason to do props out on this is if you catch any dirt, if you fling any dirt, it's going to fling it away from the camera and not straight into the lens. So if, say you're flying and catch a branch and you get the green goo from the plants, it doesn't throw it right into the camera so you can't see anything anymore. It'll throw it away and spread it out. So that's a nice little feature there. They thought about the props out on that. But yeah, this thing is pretty easy to take apart and all that. I was expecting it to be much more difficult because of the enclosures and all that. But it's not bad at all. It keeps some of the debris out and crap that you're going to catch when hitting branches and stuff like that. Because it does happen, guys. No one's perfect. This happens to be a 6-cell model here with a TBS crossfire pre-installed. But we're going to go over this one right here. So I'm going to open this one up and show you guys. Because a lot of people ask me what's the difference between the different models. And we'll go over and show you some of the newer stuff that they have. This new one features the F7 flight controller with the E55S speed control, the 4-in-1, which is the newer stuff from iFlight. So it's just newer electronics updated, and we'll go from there. So without further ado, let's crack this thing open. Nazgul props. So they're pretty aggressive props out here. If you guys are starting out, you might want to look into like Ethics peanut butter and jellies, throw them on there, makes it a little smoother. Out of the box, this thing is extremely peppy. So if you're very new to it, again, you might want to do throttle curves, and we might go over that in a different video down the road. But for now, let's get this thing unboxed. So we have the quad itself, 2 sets of props. This one comes with a cable for the RXSR. I guess that's for like software updates and stuff like that, which depending on which model you get, you may or may not get that. But the rest of it is included. The USB-C cable, so this is another new thing on this one, is the connection for it. You got a little pack with the battery strap, the little rubber grips that go on the top to keep the battery from sliding, antenna tube covers for the models that use the antenna tubes, antenna, extra screws, prop nuts, etc. in there. The next thing is your screw and nut for the GoPro style mount. So for those of you that don't have them, or if you have a GoPro, you can either 3D print. This one's fixed mount, but there's also some that mount through the slot and then you can tighten it up.
Not included.
Yeah, so this is just something people are printing and they're either replacing this and 3D printing this kind of stuff, or if you have the GoPro style cage, you put it through and then run the bolt. That's what this is for right here. And then what do we got in here? Stickers, because everybody likes stickers. And then last but not least is little spare light pipes. So this thing has LEDs all over it. And actually, let's go ahead and throw the antenna on and put the lights on this thing, because that is such a gorgeous looking quad. So before we can power it up, we have to put an antenna on this, guys. No matter what model you get, the antenna needs to be installed. Failure to do so, powering it up, can damage the VTX. This is a lens cover. I'm going to put it back on.
It keeps falling off.
All right, let's leave that from the side. But so the quad default, the LEDs are pre-programmed. These are programmable LEDs, and because it's currently no signal, the lights could be changed and all that. But you have an LED light pipe going through the sides here, and on the bottom of the frame, and the bottom of the motors, and the center. Later in the day or at night, or you got a spotter that's following you, and it's not completely bright out. This thing is just gorgeous.
Oh, that's cool.
Now these are 6mm arms because a lot of people are thinking, oh, well, they milled the channel for the LED pipe. The arm is a millimeter thicker. These are millimeter diameter light pipes or whatever. So you're not losing any strength there. If anything, you probably have a little stronger arms than the previous model.
So we got...
And this is adjustable through Betaflight. You can actually reprogram these LEDs to do different modes. Like if you change your flight mode, you have it change colors, etc. There's a lot of different things. You programmable LEDs on this thing. Really cool, but I want to tear this open and show you guys the inside of this quad. So this quad, to access the top to get to anything, which we really don't need to. That's the beauty of this quad. You don't really need to take anything apart to set it up. But, you know, like we always done in the quads, I like tearing apart to see what's in it. I want to see the workmanship quality of this product because that helps me recommend these things when they look good inside. So if they did a good job, then we're going to push it. If they didn't do a good job, we ain't going to push it. So just unscrew this thing. And that being said, iFlight, the last few generations of stuff I've seen from them have always been pretty high quality solder jobs and everything. So I'm confident that the thing's going to look very good and not like some poor quality E-Machine product or something like that they're pumping out nowadays to cut the bottom dollar.
Wait a minute, you can't say that.
Yes, we can. Fuck them. Who said that?
That part you can't say either.
Forget them.
Oh, I'm putting it in there.
Well, I'm tired of people calling about their 2-day-old E-Machines that don't work because they caught fire or something. So, top plate here. This is a 2mm top plate. Inside, we have the Blitz Mini F7 flight controller. We have the Success, I guess you call it, Mini Force. This is a 600 milliwatt capable VTX. I believe it has, let me double check my notes. It was 4 different power settings on this guy. So this VTX uses Tramp protocol. It has pit mode, 25, 200, 400, and 600 milliwatt modes. Guys, if you are going to run at 600 milliwatt, I would recommend turning pit mode on disarming because it's in the shell. It's going to get pretty warm. You don't want to cook your VTX. This is iFlight's camera. This is the race cam from iFlight, so this is their R1. Flight controller here, you can see it's got the plugs. So as far as replacement, it looks like if you ever have to replace this flight controller, either little to no soldering whatsoever, which makes repairing pretty nice. As far as getting to the motors, let's see, did we lift these plates off on the side? Oh yeah, it looks like this whole thing just lifts up here. I have not taken one of these apart before, so if you guys are like, what are you doing, Will? This is not how you do it. Well, guess what? I don't know, and I'm finding out. So hate me later, okay?
All right, so that's just really just friction in there.
Yeah, it's really tight. I mean, probably unscrewing the camera on the sides would make this a little easier, but I'm trying to take this off all as one piece.
There you go. Looks like it's moving.
And we do have to be careful with the LEDs, guys. If you look in here, the LEDs are plugged in the side plates, so you don't want to just completely yank off this frame. Plus, we're putting tension on this camera. So I'm going to unplug the camera here. I'm going to unplug the camera direct from the board, not the board, the wire from the board. And then I'm going to unplug these 2 LEDs here so we can lift this whole top plate off and get to the good stuff.
Point to the ones you unplugged because it's hard to see.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my tiny hands in here, okay, guys? If anybody remembers the Burger King commercial, it's these tiny hands.
All right.
All right.
Point to the ones you unplugged.
So I unplugged this plug from the camera itself.
Okay.
And then I unplugged this plug and this plug from the wires here. Okay? So we got that.
Hold on. So those 2 came...
These 2 right here.
Right there. Okay.
This one and this one. And then this one right here.
Okay.
Probably should have pulled that USB-C off too. That probably didn't make anything easier. But that is the side pipes and all that, the LEDs. So the way these side pipes are controlled is through this LED controller here.
So when you say pipes, you mean the LED?
The little white clear strips.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So this is what we got inside the drone. So we have looks like a 20 by 20 footprint that possibly can be moved out to 30 by 30 here with M2 screws. So that's secured. But again, this VTX, if you had to replace it, it bolts in. You got a MMCX plug here. You got a plug there. So that's easy to be serviced if you ever have to repair it. This right here is my favorite part of the quad. Let me spin this around. USB-C plug. They are starting drones, newer quads. That's kind of one way to know if you're getting a newer, like not necessarily a newer model, but more updated stuff. A lot of the newer flight controllers out there are coming with USB-Cs instead of USB 2 minis or micro USB. Sorry, I don't know why I said mini USB. But a lot of the newest generation flight controllers are going to see USB-Cs on it, which is awesome. Some of the lower end stuff is still going to be micro USBs, but a lot of your higher end stuff, you're going to see that. Stuff. Yeah. And then, so moving down, this is a 55 amp with a 60 amp burst, 6 cell capable, 4-in-1 ESC. You have pre-soldered leads here. So the only thing realistically that I see as far as servicing the quad, if you burn out a motor or burn out a 4-in-1, you will have to do soldering. But as far as flight controller replacement, LED controller replacement, VTX replacement, doesn't look like you're going to have to do any soldering, which makes things a little bit easier at the end of the day. So I really like that. One thing to mention, I did mention earlier, 6mm arms here, 2.5mm bottom plate. You can see the bottom plate goes down the length here, but it's a little shorter. It's not like super long, so if you smash, it's not going to hit too hard. It is a little thinner. There's a lot of cuts in here under where the receiver tab is, so I wish they kind of would have left that thick, but that's so you can access the screws on the bottom. But super thick arms, super thick plates here, hexagonal standoffs, metal standoffs. They're not plastic or anything like that. And they got a lot of 3D printed TPU on here. This is motor guards here with the lights underneath. This is going to be nice because, you know, if you go land on concrete, it's not going to tear up the products and all that. And it's just a nice little protection for the carbon fiber so it doesn't get all frayed up from smashing here and there. In the front and the rear, then you got the antenna mount. So if you do end up going to Crossfire, it is already there. So if you go to Crossfire antennas, you can put that in, etc. This uses the TBS style mounting position here with the 2 little pigtail screws. XT60, and that's mounted in this. And that's one thing I should have showed you guys. The XT60 is really nice because it's secured. And when you go to plug in your battery, depending on how you plug it in, it's going to minimize the amount of wire floating around. You still have the balance lead here. You might want to end up putting like a rubber band around or something like that, or a zip tie to secure it. You can run like a loose zip tie or something like that, or a rubber band. But always remember your balance lead.
Just don't cut it off. Yeah,
you don't want to get cut off by the props. But even so, it's going to be harder on this design. But having that there versus a loose, just random wire like on the older model, that's going to minimize the amount of wires getting chopped by props. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you how many of the diatones, iFlights, etc. of these that I see come in, customers have, that they forgot to tie down the strap or they crashed and the battery lead went over and the prop just ate it up to where it's all chewed up, mangled up. And that's a potential short waiting to happen if you cut both of them together. So that's really awesome that they took the time to make that a solid mount. This is a black China Hobby line. The wire length is just perfect, guys. This is just a perfect length wire out of the box to be able to do this with minimal slop in the wiring, so you're nice and tight setups. If you do have to access the receiver, that's one thing to go over here. You will pull off the factory sticker here, and this has basically little binding instructions depending on what receiver you have. If I can lift this up here, and you'll see the receiver you can get to from the bottom here. So you have a little button shown in the picture right there, and you want to use probably like a toothpick or something like that. I wouldn't use anything metal like I have here, because pushing that button, you don't want to damage anything. Again, out of the box, you don't have to disassemble this thing. It's literally bind it up, set your flight modes, the tuning on it. The rates are pretty aggressive out of the box, but the actual tuning on it's pretty spot on to get you going. Another thing to mention is the beeper on this. The 5-volt buzzer for all your different like beeping modes, lost plane finder, etc. is right there. Easy to, it's very loud. It's right there on the bottom, so it's not covered up. It's not baffled or anything like that. And it's just a good placement because it's not going to get damaged. It's not flopping around and stuff like that.
Wow, that's a lot of information.
It is a lot of information, but honestly, I just wanted an excuse to tear this apart and take a look at it because I was really interested to see what their new electronics look like.
Well, you mentioned earlier their soldering job.
Yes.
How do you think?
Solder work, they did good. I will say I have seen better from other companies per se. But that is for an out-of-the-box product. It's 99% better than most of the home solder jobs I've seen. But I would say, I mean, I would not fault their solder job. It's nice, clean. They're probably using lead-free solder, so it's a little harder to use. But it's for compliance stuff. But no, everything looks really good. It's laid out really well. There's also a capacitor, which I don't know if you can see it under the little silver capacitor. So instead of having a capacitor soldered to like the battery lead or something like that, they actually have it on the board itself. So there is a capacitor for the speed control in here. As far as the motors go, though, these are Zing E Pros 2207s, and you either have the 2750 kV in the 4-cell or the 1800 kV in the 6-cell model. Also come with a little USB rubber grommet, so if, on that, right here.
And the protector?
Yeah, a little cover for dirt and stuff like that, so you don't get dirt in that. If you do get the DJI model, if you get the one with the Caddx, you will have a second cover here, and you'll also have the bind button will be down in this little slot.
And that's to bind the camera.
So yeah, that's to pair your DJI goggles with the Caddx unit, and of course that'll be a different VTX as well, and camera.
You have an 8-second closing. Go.
So thank you guys for watching us take apart a quad. Gave me an excuse to do something that I actually enjoy doing, is taking things apart and eventually putting them back together. Thumbs up, definitely, absolutely. Honestly, the only thing I can complain about is the VTX not being 800 milliwatt like the old one. Everything else is better. Like I love the looks of this quad. This is like, if you're a fan of Tron or anything like that, like, oh, it's cool looking.